And welcome into the Cards Central Postgame Show. I'm Sarah Dayley alongside Matthew Rocchio. The Birds battle it out with the Buccos at PNC and walk away with what should have been a victory, but the final score 1-0, Pirates on top. A lot to tackle here. Runners left on base. Opportunity that was missed, a couple at bats that were missed opportunities. Rocchio, we got a lot to discuss here, but clearly a lot of comments coming in hot, ready for a lot of opportunity here. Not getting sack flies. We have a couple of comments talking about Pozo, at least he keeps hitting. So where do you want to start? We had Andre Pallante and Paul Skenes, and Skenes didn't get the win, but he does walk away with his team finally getting a victory over the Cardinals.
Yeah, I think we just got to start with the offense again, having another struggling day. Obviously, on the heels of a 4-hit, 8-strikeout performance from the offense, putting together another struggling day. This time, they actually were able to garner some hits overall. They had the men on base, but left them all there. 10 left on base, 1 for 13 with runners in scoring position. And unfortunately, that includes an over-2 performance from Lars Nootbaar, an over-2 performance from Alec Burleson, also Wilson Contreras before he got injured, although the X-rays are negative, which is a good sign. Contreras, Gorman, Donovan all missed big chances to hit as well. Pajes, the only one who actually got a hit with the runners in scoring position. And again, the biggest hit from the catcher spot arguably comes from Pozo late in the game as a pinch hitter. So, I mean, just the offense, again, struggling. That's the big thing. I'm with Chewy on this one. The offense was just it was bad.
Eddie Money saying this team can't stay consistent at all. Win 2, lose 2, win 3, lose 3. It's pathetic. And I know the up and down roller coaster has been a consistent theme since the very beginning of the year. And I think it's starting to become a serious, not just like minor frustration, but a serious frustration.
I get that mindset, but at the same time, I think we should remind fans that they started June at 7 games over 500. And yeah, it's been a lot of 2 steps back, 3 steps forward. But what's that gotten them is at the end of June, they were 9 games above 500. So yeah, it wasn't the run of May, but they just lost one of their best. They lost one of their best hitters, arguably their best hitter, in Ivan Herrera for the majority of this month, and yet they've still been able to extend their position relative to being above 500. And at the same time, we've seen cracks in the starting pitching. Andre Pallante having a big start. That's a massive thing because right now, Miles Michaelis and Eric Fetty have been too inconsistent, and you can't just lean on having 2 out of your 5. You needed Andre Pallante to return to 2024 form, and that's impressive today. He was solid. I mean, we got to focus on the offense because it's problematic, but the difference here is that Andre Pallante had a big game. The offense is bad, but Ivan Herrera is a huge factor in that.
Yeah, so the Cardinals had 7 hits and no runs. Clearly, we talked about the runners left on base, but Pittsburgh 1 run and 4 hits. So Pallante stellar once again. Maton comes in, tosses that curve. Hayes gets it all going with that single to right, and then it just kind of unfolded from there. So you look at some of those opportunities, like you have a stellar starting pitcher that does go deep. You're not using up the bullpen, and then you come in and it just gets tossed up once again.
Yeah, Brandon Lampy, can anyone for the love of God hit a sack fly? Let's not be prisoner of the moment. On Saturday when I'm doing the post game, we're talking about them winning the game because they got home runs early, and then late they're able to get 2 sacrifice hits that help them win a high-scoring game. So that's the criticism we're going to run for this team is that they can't get a good sack hit. Yeah, it was a disappointing game offensively. There's no doubt about it. That was a complete lack of clutch hitting in the worst possible way, but I'm not going to let one game completely get me down on that one. But the fact that Jose Fermin has to be one of your, biggest hitters of the game, that's a little problematic. But at the same time, we are dealing with a roster where Jose Fermin is getting DH at bats in a start. Like, that's insane. That's what Ollie's dealing with, and that has to factor into our, how we break down the offense having a terrible, terrible day.
And Hillbilly Jim talks about the base running. I've seen a couple of comments actually about the base running. For the love of God, can we not steal a base? What is going on with that? Well, the base game, that was a little pathetic. You do see opportunity, but then again, we also left a lot of runners on where there was other opportunity as well.
Yeah, it's wasted opportunities. And one of the things that made this team good in May and kept them afloat in June is taking advantage in the small ball opportunities like I was just talking about, but also just playing a fundamental game. Bernie Miklasz has been talking about that with me and Randy Carricker on the morning show this last month. this team isn't necessarily elite in a lot of different ways, but they're very good in almost every way except for running the base pass. They overall kind of suck at that. But as long as
don't get you choked up about it. I mean, let's not get that emotional. I think we're gonna be okay. Are you okay there?
That was extremely bad. That was extremely poorly timed. But as long as they don't completely fail in multiple aspects, they always have a chance to win a game. And tonight they failed in multiple aspects, and that's why they didn't win that game.
I'm sorry. Are you good? You good? I have to say that's the most emotional I've seen someone over base running, but I'll let it go.
Oh,
so Mason Wynn, a couple of stellar performances in the field. That last one really got him. That toss to first, it stayed down on Burleson, ended up being a one hopper, and just another. It wasn't an error clearly, but another attempt that really didn't go the Cardinals' direction. Jeremy Hodge here talking about the chances to score and just can't get a big hit. Again, opportunity, like you said, capitalizing, and the Cardinals had a lot of that. They did put things in place to make it happen. It just didn't quite get accomplished.
Yeah, and again, it's funny because the entire narrative today on STL Sports Central has been about overreacting to one game because of yesterday's poor attempt at a baseball game, and I'm trying to not get too over my skis after one bad game because listen, it was terrible. But how often are you going to open and close the game with Brendan Donovan striking out? I think that's like just a quick little microcosm of that's just not going to happen many times. So you deal with Donovan having an off game, the fact that you have Contreras get knocked out mid-game. Again, he's okay. That's good, but it's a crappy little Tuesday game. Throw it in the trash.
Yeah, and Contreras, obviously, the good news that it was negative, but they did show the bruise there. It almost looked at first like it was somewhat pinched a little bit, and so that was kind of looking for the positive outcome, that it wasn't going to be a broken or a fracture out there on the outside of his hand there. But again, the mood did shift a little bit at that point, because I think a lot of people were holding their breath just trying to find out what was going to happen next, because with this roster and what we have going on right now, putting the puzzle pieces together, we really can't afford to lose someone.
No, they can't, because all of a sudden, they're pinched in a weird way, and, they wouldn't be here if guys like Nolan Gorman hadn't been stepping up this month, and guys like Brendan Donovan hadn't continued to be, pretty solid players. Also, Pozo continuing to be maybe the most clutch hitter on the Cardinals roster as it stands right now. So that's important. And listen, the fact that X-ray came back in good for the Cardinals, it's huge, because the weird thing right now is that all of a sudden there's a lot of injuries, and we're talking about them being pinched in a couple ways, while at the same time having a conversation about how there's a log jam at a couple of positions. It's just that right now these things aren't overlapping. And like today's a perfect example, because Wilson Contreras gets knocked out of the game. And yeah, sure, maybe Jordan Walker's struggling, but if he's healthy, that would have been a good time for him to get a couple of bats, and it would have probably been a better option than Hampson. But because he's out right now, and they're playing it safe with him, he's not up right now, and they don't even get a chance to even alleviate a little bit of that logjam with some at bats. That was one thing that jumped out to me today, is just the unfortunate situations for Jordan Walker continues to be something in the back of my head, or even just in that bat, and just an inning out in right field is something where I'm just like, damn it, this is just the bad timing rearing its head again with Walker.
Do you think this whole situation tonight was like bad timing and just kind of a chalk it up? Or do you think this is kind of where it's an embarrassing moment? We didn't bunt when we should have. I personally feel like Newbar, you have to attempt at some point, right? And I know that King's Echo was calling me out on that and asking what my thoughts were. But if you're in this position now, you have to try and do all you can. Why would you not give it an effort? But, that's opinion. But everyone tries to play bench coach and manager. So it is what it is at this point. But tomorrow there's an opportunity for the Pirates to sweep, and that might be the case.
Yeah, I understand the thought process, but I kind of like that he didn't bunt and they were able to advance the runner in the seventh. And So I wasn't really even thinking about it necessarily at that point. The difference there, like, do you want them to squeeze? Like, I don't like. I do think like baseball teams aren't good at bunting. Professional baseball teams are bad bunters now because they don't do it. They're not asked to do it, and if you don't do things at the most critical times over and over and over again and practice in the most critical moments, then you're not going to be able to execute. And there's no reason for a coach to expect his player to execute if it's not something they routinely do. That's something that I have no hard opinion on bunting or not. But when I hear professionals be like, yeah, a lot of pros just can't bunt anymore, and so just don't even, it's stupid to even theorize it. I'm just like, fine, I'll roll with that opinion because it kind of makes sense to me. But just looking, I'm a big on have a plan and stick to it. I like that they didn't bunt with him in the 7th, which I thought was an opportunity. I'm okay with them in a slightly different opportunity instead of advancing the runner. I know that's the case in the 7th. We're talking about trying to score somebody in the 9th. They probably boof it and screw it up and do it even worse than what happened. So I'm okay with them letting them swing.
But don't you think, so just listening to what you were just saying, they're professional baseball players. And if they're not practicing and routinely doing what they should be doing, don't you think that's to a fault? Like, hey, we're not going to bunt because we don't do it at all. Well, that's kind of your job, is to make sure that you can do plays that put across victories and wins. And if you can't do that, then we have bigger problems to discuss. So, I mean, I hear what you're saying, that it's not probably the best opportunity, but like, I don't know if that's a valid excuse for a professional baseball player to say that they just can't put the butt down.
Wouldn't you argue the same thing for hitting for average?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's completely, for the most part, it's devoid of the game to the point where people criticize Luis Arraez, despite the fact that he has an extremely elite level of play, and people still find a way to criticize him because he's good at that one thing because it doesn't fit into the stereotypical play. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm not saying it's a good excuse. I'm saying that other people who know this game, even who know this game better than I do, say, listen, Major League Baseball players for the most part kind of suck at bunting now, so you shouldn't want them to do it in those clutch moments. I understand why, because no one does it anymore. I'm not making an excuse for it. I'm just pointing out the reality. I think that's a tricky thing here we do sometimes, is the difference between like reality and what I would prefer.
Right.
I prefer, I grew up in St. Louis, and I grew up in a very stereotypical best fans in baseball household. Play solid defense, run the bases correctly. I'd love it if they did that more. I'd love it if they laid down a bunt in that scenario. But I'm not expecting it anymore. My expectations have changed to the reality of the situation of what Major League Baseball is now, and also what the Cardinals are, even in today, relative to today's game of baseball. Everyone's talking about stealing more. Guess what? The Cardinals aren't doing it. So I'm not expecting them, and I think it would make sense. They don't have a lot of speed, but the idea of finding ways to manufacture runs would be logical for this team, considering they don't have the power, and they're going to need to find ways to consistently score runs if they're going to be in the playoffs, because for the most part, teams don't score in the playoffs that don't hit home runs in the last 10 years. So they're going to have to be an anomalous team. And one way of being an anomaly would be not running when everybody else would. And that's kind of a weird way to go about it, in my opinion. So I say run more, but they're not good at it. So that's why we don't see it.
Yeah. And I'm for a second there, my heart was just like, oh, because you said playoffs and home runs. And it's like, what happened to, and I'm going to be the old school person, like Whitey Ball, manufacturing runs, making plays. I'm like, if you can't hit home runs, you're not going to the playoffs. Oh, look at Larry Loveless. I love you. You are reading my mind.
you can make it there, but just because it's a shorter span of time, and pitching staffs can ramp everything up, the numbers tell you that you have to be able to have just a random inning where you hit 2 home runs and change games consistently to win series more often than not. And just because of the way that baseball has changed. So you can get there maybe not hitting a lot of home runs, but I don't know if the numbers say that you can win without having clutch power, or honestly, it should just be slugging is what we're talking about, because it's not necessarily all about home runs. It's still, if you just hit doubles all day, you'll be fine. But even to that point, the Cardinals, aren't that great on that point either. So my point is, they need to find more ways to manufacture runs. And if you want to get critical of the offense more than just the bigger picture, this is a good game to hone in on and say the Cardinals are going to be in games like this, especially in the playoffs, because, again, pitching staffs ramp things up. If they're going to be in games like this, how are they going to win it if they're not willing to make traditional baseball, small ball plays outside of just a sack hit here or a sack hit there? Can you execute a suicide squeeze? That should be something, to your point, that they're working on, because they need to find ways to manufacture every possible run they can get, healthy Ivan Herrera or not.
And to I guess it would be validate the environment that today's game is and everything. The average expectation is so different. If you hit a cup, X amount of home runs, it's like, oh, well, good job. No, you get paid millions and millions of dollars to do your job. If you don't succeed at average, then you're not doing your job. If you don't go to work at a normal job and you don't do your job, you get fired, right? You get let go. You don't get a ton of opportunities to just get up there and make everything better for the amount of money these guys are making. So at some point it's just hard. It's hard to see that situation play out for the Cardinals and the expectations. And all these fans, like you said, and we've discussed, are frustrated. We get it. I did see one comment. It pretty much scrolled past, but the end of Whitey Ballin era is over. It went away with the Astros turf. I think it said something along those lines.
Mason Windu, one of the best names in the chat. Sorry, I loved Whitey and the Cardinals of the 80s, but Whitey Ball ended when Astro turf ended. But again, two things, and we're seeing that this year. And I always like to make this football analogy because I think this NFL season was a great example of this. About when everyone zigs, you got to zag. And in the NFL, defenses got smaller and running the ball disappeared. And then all of a sudden this year it came back because defenses got smaller, and now we can run on these fools. And the same thing in baseball. Catchers are not attuned to playing the running game, and the bases are bigger. And also, to Vince Coleman's point, there's a freaking starting gun literally sitting right there behind you. You have a starting gun. It's going to count down. You know when the pitcher has to wind up. So the running game is easier in a lot of other ways, to the point where, yes, turf's gone, but there are a lot of other ways that baseball has changed where running should be accentuated. And that my point is that other teams are picking up on that. Other teams are picking up on the fact that Ivan Herrera's are playing catcher around Major League Baseball and can't throw them out. Other teams are picking up on Eric Fetty's haven't had a single base runner thrown out against them. So they're running more because these guys are doing something, whether it's how they handle throwing over because they have a limit now, how they handle their pitch clock. And again, are they allowing runners to use it like a starting block, essentially? Like, these things factor into it being an easier running game for some teams. My point is, why aren't the Cardinals taking advantage of these things and being a better running team with their athletic players? I don't need to see Alec Burleson running, but why is Mason Wynn a negative player on the base paths at times?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. So just so we can recap real quick, this is the Cardinals' loss to the Pirates by a final score of 1-0. The Cards Central postgame show, it was a tough one. They go for the chance to sweep tomorrow. First pitch is at 11:35 Central. We'll have Sonny Gray on the mound. But at this point, baseball season is officially halfway through, and it's time to step up to the plate with DraftKings. So if you think of DraftKings Pick 6 as your fastball right down the middle, it's the easiest way to play for cash and take a shot at the big win. Cash in your baseball knowledge. New players get $50 in Pick 6 credits instantly on just a $5 entry.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. One per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 14 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
Once again, that's the emotional base running Matthew Rocchio. I'm just along for the ride, Sarah Dayley here on the Cards Central postgame show. A lot of thoughts on Brendan Donovan, red hot, now chilled off a bit. A lot of times players go through this slump, not something I'm super concerned about, but we've had a couple of comments talking about Donovan and what he's been doing at the plate.
Yeah, I was looking at this yesterday. Another tough game for him. Like we talked about, the bookending strikeouts, very beginning, very end of the game for Donovan. I think his OPS is around 6 something. in the leadoff spot this year as opposed to the 970, whatever, 1,000 it was in the 3-hole. Is it coincidence? Was it a guy who's, was hitting kind of over his career mark, was always going to come down a little bit? Or is it the fact that he's having to lead off? I'm not sure. I'm not good enough at reading guys' approach at the plate to tell you, like, I think it's, when you're at the leadoff spot, you got to see more pitches. Where at third, at 3, you're just trying to, you're just trying to be the best hitter you can be. I'm not sure if we've seen a material change in his approach in trying to see more pitches or not, but that's for the Cardinals to figure out. Is it coincidental, or are these things connected? And if we see a change in the next few days, I think that's that won't surprise me. Part of that's also going to be Lars Nootbaar. For the most part, looks like he's found some of his stride again. So are they okay with moving him back into the leadoff point after moving him out of there to get his stride back? I'm not sure. That's another one of those weird decisions that the Cardinals are going to make that we're going to criticize for them no matter which way they go.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Nick Jensen saying this team has to play perfect to win games, meaning pitching and hitting have to be clicking. If one of them falters, they are sunk. That's just a fact. And you have a valid point. I mean, you have a stellar pitcher, and if you don't put runs across the plate, this is what happens if you don't capitalize, and vice versa. So you do have to find a somewhat balanced routine there.
Isn't that like most of Major League Baseball?
100%.
I mean,
yeah, that's just a fact. Is the point?
No, I think it's slightly. I think we've seen this team win a lot of games where they did not play perfect. We've seen this team win a lot of games where they played very well across 3 or 4 parts of the game and completely bottomed out and sucked in one of them, and still win games. I mean, we've seen the starting pitching completely crap the bed, but hitting, relief pitching, and defense backs things up, and they win games. We've seen that twice in the last week alone. So I think that's why this team is 9 games above or 8 games above 500 now, is because they don't need to play perfect to win games. If one part falters, they don't just lose. That's a 500 team. A team consistently better than that, which is what the Cardinals have been all year. I think that's a little bit oversimplifying what this team is.
And that someone a little earlier that just went past mentioned that where was it? They were just talking.
Who we got?
I know. I just lost my thought. It goes by so fast that you can't catch up when you scroll down to the bottom of the comments.
I mean, the chat's absolutely killing it. You guys are absolutely everywhere. Although Aaron Dobson always in there. He's very mad at us for not holding the Cardinals accountable, because if we were mad at them, they would play better, because it's not the millions of dollars in their lifelong dream that makes them play better. It's the media. 3, Eric the Red. Oh, I got that. You tried to trick me with your little spelling, but I sourced you out, you Viking SOB. Eric the Red. A lot of things have went the Cardinals' way this year, including limited injuries, and yet they still have to be better. Their luck won't last forever. It won't, but you got to give them some credit for doing their best to mitigate it Bernie did a great job in his latest column, not his latest column, but one of his recent columns on STLSportsCentral.com, breaking down about how they are limiting them to under 90 pitches, and that has contributed to the lack of injuries. And while limiting to under 90 pitches, which is below average in amount for a major league pitching staff, they actually have the 3rd or 4th most innings pitched in the National League. Yeah, they're limiting injuries. Yeah, they're getting lucky, but there is a little bit of work to some of that luck, and you got to give them credit for that.
That's a 9 out of 10 for me on a creative name there for sure. And I can't believe
that's good.
I like that, because that's a good one. But it was a comment on transition. Whoever it was, now I remember, it said it's a transition year. We have to remember that. I understand rebuilding, and I definitely think that is some leniency. I don't think it's an excuse. I feel like when you have the talent the Cardinals have, and you've seen the blips of it show up, then it needs to be developed and put more. I feel like the rebuilding year and the transit, you can only say that so much. And yes, we're young, and yes, we have a lot to learn. We, as in the Cardinals, I'm not, whatever. I hate when people say we, so I catch myself and I'm like, I'm not playing for the Cardinals, but there's a lot of opportunity there. So I understand the transition and the young development. At the same time, There's a product that needs to be put on the field. It wasn't that great at the beginning of the year. We've seen what it can do, and it needs to be at the highest of potential for this team.
Yeah, I would agree with that one. I'm big on playing the kids. I'm big on playing for the future. But you do have to respect that there's people in professional jobs, and as soon as the games start getting won and the playoffs start becoming a possibility, they have to change their mindsets, and you have to respect that fact. Now you have to, within that, criticize how much they change that mindset and the decisions they make. The Blues right now are a good example of
that trade today.
Understanding that, are they making the right risk? This is definitely a risk. Is it the right risk? Like that kind of push and pull there's a lot of room to criticize, but you got to give the room for them to figure it out, for them to understand that they got to make that decision and see how it plays out. I don't think we're going to see massive amounts of change, but I think Jordan Walker's a good example. In May, right before he gets injured, they were probably I was fully confident they were going to let him drop below the Mendoza line if that's what it took for them to figure out what his problem was and how to get him right. They were going to let him play through anything and everything. Then he gets hurt, and Nolan Gorman finds his bat. Alec Burleson continues to hit well, and not only that, he starts hitting really well against lefties, which is insane. And then Walker gets hurt again, and it's completely thrown everything off. So I don't like it, but I think they need to change their plan with Walker. And I wouldn't be saying that if they were below 500 team right now. I'd be saying as soon as he gets back, as soon as you're done being cautious with the appendicitis, play him every day in right field, righty-lefty matchups, whatever. But now I do think they need to change some of these plans. And it doesn't even matter if I think so. This gets back to the reality versus what I want. These are professionals who want to win. They are going to change their plan from what it was before the season. You don't need me to tell you that. Just read the incredible reporting from guys like Bernie, Derek Gould, and Katie Wu, because the people in the building are telling them that.
Yeah, 100%. So looking ahead to tomorrow, Sonny Gray against Keller. Sonny 8-2, 3.36, 101 strikeouts. King Zucco talking about we should be sweeping the Pirates after this series wrap up tomorrow. Then we head to Chicago.
They just slaughtered the Mets. And at some point you weren't your luck was going to turn in a Paul Skenes start. You weren't going 5-0 against him. Have you ever been in Vegas before? There was no way that luck was going to continue. They're not. Yes, they're not a good team, but they're again back to the fact that these are professionals trying to win games. You can step up and slaughter a baseball team any day of the week. Bottom line.
So on paper tomorrow, Sonny Gray should dominate against Keller, but clearly there's a lot of things that have to go into play to make sure the Cardinals walk away with the one victory out of PNC.
Gray's on fire right now. I'm not going to bet against Sonny Gray right now with how he's pitching. Also because it's not August yet. And so yeah, I think they'll get one, and that's what they're going to need. Obviously, you gotta keep salvaging games. You got there within 2.5 because the Cubs got beat up by the Astros. And the Padres lost a couple. You're gonna be battling. You're never gonna get space. We're gonna be talking about numbers like this all the way through September, which I prefer that over the opposite. And I think we're not gonna necessarily have any fun at the trade deadline, but you're playing with house money in a lot of ways this season, and I get why people are mad, but I mean, you're seeing a lot of young players get chances. The only reason you're not seeing other young players get chances like Jordan Walker is because they're struggling and other young players are stepping up. I understand the frustration in not getting to see Michael McGreevy or Quinn Matthews, but the Cardinals are always going to handle the pitchers the way they're going to handle the pitchers. I still think there's a very good chance we're going to see Michael McGreevy, if not now because of a demotion to a struggling pitcher. You'll see him at worst in September. And heck, there's still something to get excited about with the draft coming up, because there's a chance that one of these big name lefty pitchers falls to them at number 5, and that could be something that actually changes, the look of the rotation or the formation or the staff in the organization in just a year or two, and that's pretty exciting going forward as well. So I mean, there's a lot of things that are going to change about this Cardinals team between July 1st and August 1st. And to quote Samuel L. Jackson, hold on to your butts.
The draft could be a whole different freaking 3-hour show in itself with the Cardinals having the number 5 pick this year. So we'll hold off on that conversation because we'll be here till 2:00 in the morning if that is the case. But Harry stating, how can you hate the Pirates? Seriously?
Seriously. I mean, the King Echo says he hates the Pirates so much I wanted it. How over the last 20 years is that the team that you built a hatred against? I feel so sad for their fans.
That's the one you just kind of like sweep under the rug and let it go because you feel bad for them and they haven't really done crap. So it's like, why are you going to have that? I mean, slight rivalry, but nothing compared to what some of the other matchups are. So
like, I feel sorry for Cincinnati fans, but they like Skyline Chili and Brandon Phillips is an ass, and therefore I'm okay with hating them overall. I got plenty of reasons for everybody else in the Central. The Pirates, I honestly sit there like I remember a few years ago I was like, you know what? I think it'd be kind of nice if this Polanco and Marte corner outfield combo kind of works out for them. I like these kids, and it really did. It really did.
And they had the Steelers, so whatever. Yeah, we'll just cap that
out. Steelers and Penguins. Pittsburgh teams that have a lot of success do piss me off pretty quickly, actually. That's a really good point.
All right, once again, if you'd enjoyed being with us tonight, chatting, subscribing, please do so. We love the conversation. Any final thoughts on what we're going to do tomorrow? Any concerns, comments, any last comments from anyone involved in the chat? We're here to wrap this one up, but love to hear what your final thoughts are.
I just think, to your point, it's got to be a win tomorrow, obviously, for the Cardinals. I'm really interested in who's starting for the Pirates again?
Keller's
starting for the Pirates.
Yeah,
he's the one who shut them down last time, isn't he? That they faced him. He absolutely burned through them. I think they absolutely burned through him. He actually absolutely burned through the Cardinals last time they faced off against him. So facing off against a righty, I'm really interested in what the lineup's going to be. Obviously, we've had a lot of comments about their lack of being able to hit against righties and things like that. So for me, my big question, and I'm not surprised we didn't see it today because it was a Pallante start. With Sonny Gray out there, I'm wondering, and maybe this isn't a question because of the Wilson Contreras knock, maybe he's not healthy tomorrow, and a lack of Jordan Walker. My big question going forward is, will they play Lars Nootbaar in center field against a righty as a way to be like, fine, we're just going to play all the lefties because we don't have any righties. Jordan Walker's not good enough. We'll play all the lefties because they all have good, pretty good reverse splits in one way or another. That's my big thing going forward. I don't think it'll happen tomorrow because, again, I don't think Contreras will play. And with Walker not being up, you're not trying to force at-bats into the corner outfield, which is one reason to do that. But it is one thing that I'm fascinated going forward for the Cardinals. And there's a potential that it could get thrown in tomorrow, but we'll see. To Aaron Dobson's point, I'm not okay with losing, though. I'm very mad at the Cardinals. I'm going to go put some fingers in some chests.
And grief counseling is okay with me, Mason Windu, stating that we're grief counselors. Hey, you know what? I was actually airing grievances as well at the beginning of the season. It was pretty dang negative at the start. So I'm only up from here. Really, it couldn't get worse than where we were. I mean, I guess it could. I shouldn't say that, but not worse for the Cardinals. We are definitely making some progress. It's just now being analytical because that's our expectation. It's how the Cardinals have always played as an organization. I don't think anyone is at fault for being critical of what they're expecting their product to be on the field.
I know we're signing off here. I can't imagine being a Cardinal fan this year and actually being mad about Brent Brown. How are you? What is going to make you happy in that the Cardinals, universally, everyone's like, this guy's really helped us as a team. This guy's really helped me become a better hitter. And for the most part, the Cardinals' hitting numbers are not only good relative to the rest of the league, they're better than they were last year, which is all you can ask a coach to do when it's the exact same flipping roster, especially on the hitting side. So how in any way, shape, or form are you bummed or mad about Brent Brown's ability to coach this team up? That's insane to me. It's insane.
Yeah, there's
all I got. The last thing.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, Pallante pitches a gem against Skenes, but the Cards do fall short by a final score of 1-0 tonight. They're back at it tomorrow, like I mentioned, 11:35 first pitch to wrap it all up, and they head to the Windy City. We'll see how that shakes out. But I'm Sarah Dayley. That's Matthew Rocchio. We appreciate you joining us here on the Cards Central Postgame Show. We're right back at it all the time right here on Sports Central. Randy at 10 o'clock tomorrow. Then you've got Cards 365 and once again Postgame Show. So we'll see you right back here soon. Have a good night.